All right. Well, Chase, I'm gonna hand it over to you to introduce for the automatic license plate readers.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. Everybody, it's nice to meet y'all. I'm Chase Ferguson. I work with a company called Flock Safety. We're excited to host this in conjunction with Jack McQueen here to talk a little bit more about uh, kind of crime in the area. What are some of the solutions out there to help mitigate and solve crime? And then any Q&A to see how this would actually work in conjunction with law enforcement. So what we'll do today is we'll talk a little bit more about the area, current state of the union. Jack, I'm going to pass to you for
Yep.
maybe a couple minutes to talk through that. We'll talk through some of the solutions that are out there and really what specifically Flock Safety can provide your businesses and how we've helped others in the past. And then from there, we can hit some Q&A, talk through anything we need to talk through at the end there. So, Jack, with that, I'm going to pass to you if you want to give us a quick high-level overview, and then we'll take it from there.
Yep. Hi, I'm Jack McQueen. I'm the group supervisor in investigations up at the Bloomington Police Department. And within this unit, we do a variety of different things. But back in 2012, I'm going to give you a quick thumbnail history of your city, because a lot of people aren't aware of this because they just don't see it in the paper. In 2012, I reached out to a large corporation here in town. There's only a couple. You can figure out who it is, but we got grant money for putting cameras in the downtown corridor, downtown Bloomington, to try to see what cameras would do, see if we could make things a little bit safer for people. And we had those down there for several years. And in 2014, we had a very high profile homicide in a non-crime or a low crime area, if you will. We reached out, and at the time, the only cameras we had were downtown, right? So we reached out on the east side to 23 different businesses for video. And out of the 23 that we reached out to, trying to find the suspect coming and going from this homicide, we were left with just 4 or 5 video cameras across basically a quarter of the area of the city, a huge area, which was surprising. And in those cameras that we actually got into court and used, the quality of them was so low. To kind of skip to the end of the race here, there was an acquittal at the end of that case. So a big part of that acquittal was the lack of clarity and clear video from different businesses, including our own. So we learned a hard lesson from that and moved forward and said, if we're going to have better video in town, we can't make the businesses increase the use of video. We can't make them have better resolution. Let's control some of that ourselves. So in 2020, 14, 15-ish, up until today, we have built, and as you drive around Bloomington, you'll see cameras in some of the intersections that are hanging above you on the standards. So we have 8 major intersections. We have cameras in, not just cameras that are video for accident reduction, major crime response, and otherwise, but we've also got the cameras that are turned up to maximum resolution. And that's something maybe you guys and girls have been talked to about before. But if you go get a TV at Best Buy or somewhere and it's 720, and then it advertises 1080, and then there's 4K and ultra high resolution. We run our cameras at the highest resolution possible in these intersections now. And since we've done that, in 2022, we added another layer, which back to Chase, we started adding license plate readers in the city. So you have 2 technologies. You have high resolution video at 8 or 9 of the intersections. You have, for Bloomington at least, we have approximately 20 locations where we either use a license plate reader, which is a small camera on a pole roadside to take images of the plates, or we do an integration of that intersection camera where the intersection video also will pull license plates into that same cloud in that same system. So we have 2 technologies working as one. Where that paid dividends, I'll give you a last weekend as an example. Last Thursday, we were sitting here at work, and in the afternoon, we had a shots fired call go out and a man down. And within 4 minutes of that shots fired call, we brought up our video cameras in town at major intersections. We brought up our plate readers, worked with them in conjunction, identified the suspects leaving the scene, the vehicle, the license plate that was on the vehicle, and the people that were in the car. You could physically see the people that were in the car. They had already left the scene. We dealt with the subject that had been shot, and we already had a vehicle. So now we have to find the vehicle. So if you imagine a network of these cameras where you can proactively use it, we put the license plate into the network of cameras and said to it, let it do the work for you. When this car next shows up passing an intersection or a plate reader, notify us by text message. And it was maybe 20 minutes and all the way up by Bridgestone and Normal, because Normal Police Department and Bloomington Police Department both network their cameras together. That car reappeared in town going past Bridgestone, and we sent officers up and intercepted the car in downtown Normal, towed the car, took 3 people into custody, and that was done within 45 minutes. I've been around for a long time, as Pete can attest to, and that used to be a 1 to 2 week process, you know, without those technologies. And then you reflect back on that 2014 homicide, having had this technology in place at the time would have been a complete game changer on that case. So kind of moving through for where we're at today for Bloomington, we're off to a fast start this year with 14 shootings, unfortunately, from January 1 to now. As I gave you that example, we just used it last weekend. Yesterday, we used it 3 times in 3 cases. This morning, getting prepped for this, didn't even get my prep done because we had a case where a large retailer in Bloomington reported yesterday an organized retail theft group came in, took items, left in a car, left Bloomington. We know they left Bloomington because they were on our cameras leaving Bloomington. So before the meeting, we checked to see where those people were. They're in Champaign-Urbana. They rolled into Champaign-Urbana on their network. Their network talks to our network. And we immediately let Champaign Police Department know that they might want to reach out to those same businesses in their town. And we've got people ahead of the crime. And the hope would be there that they can arrest them or catch them in the act. We can recover our property, which is your property, and we clear the case. No surprise, those people are out of the Chicagoland area. So we are also working with an attorney general grant here that we just received. City Council just signed off on it last week or this week. And that's going to allow us to do additional LPRs, license plate readers, and cameras along Veterans Parkway from the mall all the way around I-55 on those major intersections. It does 2 things. Examples similar to what I've been talking about for major violent incidents. We're going to use it on organized retail theft. And they come in handy for everything from traffic accidents to somebody. We had a kid, we just had a kid yesterday doing 122 miles an hour in a 45 mile an hour zone. Things like that you don't think of as traditional crime. You get them stopped, you get them pulled over, you get them removed before they can run somebody down or cross a bus stop or whatever it is at that speed. So a lot to hit you with fast, but where we stand as Bloomington Normal, we are very much proactive in regards to this technology when you compare us to other central Illinois cities. You don't find a combination of both of these technologies being used outside of our city. And we're kind of on our 10th year for that, with Chase and his company's LPRs being in their 2nd year. And like I said, that Attorney General grant, we are going to expand it. And I'll kind of close with saying, and we can bring this up at the again, the technology that we're going to talk about a little bit, and he's going to talk about today, allows us to layer these in a map down at the police department. And you might have driven around Bloomington Normal, and it kind of even surprises me at the number of trailer cameras that are now popping up in business parking lots that are not ours. So we did a head count before I got on here. We have 6 of them I know in Bloomington. We have 1, there's a new truck stop going up, and the construction company out west has placed a multi-camera trailer cam in that parking lot while they're doing construction. As you come down toward downtown, there's another one sitting in renovation parking lot. The restaurant's being renovated. And we have 3 of the big box stores here in town that you probably have seen them parked in their parking lots. Those are not our cameras. And the benefit to that is we buy plate readers, and we buy and manufacture our own cameras that I've been talking about is through Flock's product that we just expanded. If a business says I have a trailer camera or I have a camera that is sending data to the cloud, they have the capability, and it's completely at their own volition, to give us a feed from that camera. And think about schools, factories, major infrastructures, even government facilities. If you have an active shooting situation, God forbid, especially at a school, we would be able to integrate their camera into our system, bring up the feed, and respond to your business or respond to that location as it's happening without with a lot of proactivity and a lot of awareness prior to getting there. So I bring up those trailer cameras because you're seeing them everywhere. And that's going to be one of the things I'm going to do as a police department. We're going to reach out to some of those companies and say, you know, they don't have to, but if they're willing to, share us your feed only in a major event. Right now, it would look something like this. You'd have a major event. We'd go out and handle it, and we'd collect the evidence later, right? The idea is as it's happening or just before it happens. And yesterday I said we had 3 events we took care of using the combination of this technology. One of them didn't involve us. One of them was a different county that called us and said, we had a crime series that happened. We know you've had similar. Can you check your plate readers to see if this person has been in your city? I didn't find them in our city. I found them 2 hours north of here because we were delivering a new squad car from Bloomington, from Chicago, where we bought it, down to Bloomington. When the guy picked the car up, one of our officers turned on all the systems. This is so weird. He passed the suspect. Oh, and I haven't told Flock this yet either. He passed the suspect coming back from Chicago to Bloomington, and that suspect was pre-crime. He was on the way to do his crime in another county, 2 counties over from us. And we had to scratch our heads thinking, okay, how do we use all of this technology? So we're pretty excited about it and our partnership with Flock's expanded products to see if we can reach out to some places like schools and factories and big, Fortune 500 locations and say, if there's a big event at your business, can we then activate that camera? We have a business in town, an entity that have 5 cameras that they've purchased that have already allowed us to integrate. We've only used it once, and we used it on a stolen car. And sure enough, our suspect pulled into their parking lot, went through their parking lot in 2 minutes, and exited their parking lot. That's all we needed to kind of get to that next step. So, Chase, that's a lot, probably more than I told you I would talk about, but I'm good at Pete can tell you that. If you have any questions about anything now or later, feel free to reach out to me.
Well, Jack, we appreciate you giving us a state of the union, kind of a high level of what's going on and how y'all have been able to use this technology. What I want to do is talk through what that technology actually means for the businesses in Bloomington, right? Because we've heard about how law enforcement uses it. And let's talk about a little bit more about our product suite and what are some of the things we have and how has it been helpful, from internal LP or AP teams or investigations or risk managers or whatever the case may be. So we've got a handful of products. One, our flagship is our Flock Safety license plate reading camera. You heard Jack talk about tag readers, LPRs, license plate reading cameras, things like that. The reason that we have built those is because 70% of the time a crime occurs using a vehicle, right? If somebody comes in and breaks into the Best Buy and steals a TV, they're not going to be running down the interstate with that TV over their shoulder, right? They've put it in the back of a car. They're trying to make a quick getaway. And so the best way for us to actually help solve and prevent crime is to identify that vehicle, because that tag is tied to a name, an address, past criminal history, things of that nature. Instead of Bloomington PD looking for all red pickup trucks, because that's what showed up on your video, we can say we're actually looking for this red pickup truck with tag ABC123. It's tied to Dan Murdoch in LaGrange, Illinois, for example. So these cameras will actually go at the entrance of your parking lots or into some high crime areas. They're infrastructure free. They're solar powered, hooked up to cellular LTE service, and allow you to search by vehicle description to say, okay, something happened last night. Somebody pulled into our bank and opened up a fraudulent line of credit. We saw them drive away in a white SUV. I can now identify that white SUV via tag and be alerted anytime it comes back. I can hand it over to law enforcement. I can know if they hit other branches within my company, things of that nature, right? So can we solve it on the back end? Can we actually prevent it from happening in the first place because we are alerted next time they come on property? So if somebody hits up the mall, the Kohl's, for example, I saw on the map, and steals $100 worth of jeans, might not be that big of a deal, but if they start coming back 3 or 4 times a week or 4 times a month, we can be alerted every time they come back. And y'all, as professionals, can handle those, can meet them at the door, can write them a ticket, can catch them in the act, can call the police, whatever the case may be. So this helps you from an internal standpoint. The tag readers also integrate with law enforcement so that if any stolen car drives by, warrants out for arrest, missing persons, Amber Alerts, things of that nature, Bloomington PD can also be alerted in near real time to say, there's a stolen car at the mall right now. They're most likely not coming to shop for, Christmas decorations. They're on their way to either take something out of the mall without paying for it, open up car doors in the parking lots, things of that nature. So we can actually alert law enforcement as well from a proactive standpoint. So these tag readers can, like we said, alert, help solve on the back end to actually deter crime from happening in the first place. And then you can tie all these together to make sure that that conviction sticks. And that way somebody isn't just, let go tomorrow. If we can just if we tie them to $100 theft here, it's really not that big a deal. They might be out tomorrow. But if we can tie them to 10 $100 thefts around the city or around other retailers, that's a felony. It hits a certain amount of revenue there. So we can actually keep these folks off the street moving forward and keep everybody safe. So our tag readers, like I said, are infrastructure free, solar powered, cellular LTE service, unlimited users, things of that nature. We also have some video cameras to provide the full story and the context that if you don't already have video, or it doesn't automatically integrate with law enforcement, or it's grainy and it just doesn't quite do the trick, we have some video cameras that can, when you get alerted of a vehicle on your property from your LPR cameras, you can then go to your video cameras and say, great, here's that red pickup truck driving through my parking lot. I've seen the folks get out of the car here. They've walked into the store. They've walked back out. Bing, bang, boom. And now you have the entire story that you can put together in a nice little piece of evidence for law enforcement, for your internal teams, or whoever might need it. So that's how those two products work together from a good and best scenario. We've got just the tag readers to say who's on my property, as well as the video cameras to say, all right, let me see them drive in, let me see them get out, let me see them steal the jeans from the Kohl's, for example, and then let me see them get away. And now we have the entire story right then and there. We've got audio detection products. So if there was a shooting, it can alert law enforcement typically before somebody's even called 911. So that way they can recover evidence at the scene. They can provide first aid to any victims, as well as be there typically before somebody's even left that scene, and then can continue to pull that evidence. And then lastly, we have some technology only, just some software only products that we can overlay on your cameras that currently exist to make them Flock products and allow Bloomington PD to integrate with them and access them without ever having to come onto your property. So if you were to report a crime, they can, Jack can just log in from his computer, pull what he needs to without ever having to show up, or without ever having to pull something from the scene if necessary. So all this to say, all of these products exist to eliminate and solve crime. The best way to eliminate crime is to take away somebody's ability to get away with it. If criminals are not in the business of being caught. If they were, they wouldn't be very good criminals. And so what we want to be able to do is take away that safety net of them being able to get away with things and actually deter and prevent things from happening in the first place. I'm going to pause there. I know that was kind of a lot of story, a lot of here's our products, things of that nature. I'm going to pause there. Who has questions? Who wants to dive in a little bit more? Day and Jack, if I've missed anything and y'all want to chime in here, please, absolutely. I'd hate to monologue for another 40 minutes.
Yeah. I have a question on your license plate readers. Is that a 360-degree view?
It's a really good question. So they're actually stationary and they were viewing the vehicle as they drive past the camera. So the ones that are around Bloomington currently, what they do is they see about 2 or 3 lanes worth of traffic and see the vehicle. Let me see if I can actually pull up a example here, if you'll bear with me. Our live video cameras are typically 360, the PTZ, the eye in the sky that you might see around. Our LPRs are stationary and will get every vehicle that drives by it. So they're not actually scanning or rotating or anything like that. They're actually just
single directional then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
And then to, while you're bringing that up or doing whatever, the software overlay on already installed cameras, is there, I'm sorry, Mr. McQueen was talking about the grainy images from the 2014 event. Does the software there have to be some assumptions on the quality of your cameras, correct?
That's right. So what happens is the quality of that camera is determined by the hardware and the lens and the all that kind of stuff. What we are able to do is essentially just take that feed and allow you to search for it within the Flock portal, for example. Our software won't make it any clearer. So in that case, if it is super grainy and it's just kind of out of date and it doesn't quite do what you need it to do, that's why we have our own video camera that is 25x optical zoom. It's super, super clear. You can it essentially takes the human eye to about half a mile of sight. So you can really see exactly what you need to. I'm going to share this screen real quick. See a little bit behind the
Hey, Chase, while you're doing that, just one more comment is for us, even before we had Flock's LPR capability, we had cameras around the city on those intersections, and we took existing cameras that were PTZ or that could move for watching the intersection, and we had extra ones essentially on those locations. So what I did is just zoom them in and locked them down so they couldn't move. So you're just seeing the car, and then sent that data to their cloud, and then it reads the license plate. So there's a capability. Sometimes if you use an existing camera, it's differently. And for private, just to use schools as an example, again, access control to large corporation parking lots is what we've done here is I put them at choke points. So rather than trying to monitor everything that goes by, some places only have one way in and one way out, and that's what we're looking at. So we've been able to recharacterize some existing equipment to do that, Ms. Woods.
And when you log in, this is essentially what you would be able to see. We've put this demo camera on a roadway. These would be essentially at the entrances of your parking lots, or to Jack's point, the choke points onto your property. But our cameras will get you an image of the entire vehicle here. They will read the license plate for you, and then actually give you any details that you might need. So our cameras are smart enough to know that this is a white Chevy pickup truck, for example. So instead of you coming through here and saying, I need to pull 24 hours worth of footage to find the white pickup truck that was on my property last night, breaking into cars or doing donuts in the parking lot. Instead of doing that, you can just search by day and time and say, I don't care about everything. I only care about pickup trucks that are white, for example. Instead of seeing 100 vehicles over 2 hours, you can actually just get down to exactly what you need. And say, all right, great. Now here's my 10 white pickup trucks. Jack McQueen, which of these is my suspect? Right. And you say, well, it's this guy because it was the cool air mechanic we saw in the video. And so we've just taken 24 hours worth of footage and distilled it into 15 seconds. And the best part is these cameras do communicate with Bloomington PD. So Jack can actually just do this for you if you file a report and say, hey, Jack, here's what happened. Can you go in and search for white pickup trucks? You know, here's what's going on.
Yeah,
And
Chase, if I can give one example.
Please.
Last fall, criminals are adaptive. So last fall, somebody had the great idea in some city, right, I guess, to do the first crime of this type. Let's rent a U-Haul truck that's a box truck, and let's go do massive retail theft at businesses. And we're talking $5,000 to $10,000 losses a shot. So it took about 2 of them in a row before we realized that's a clue, right? Box trucks are being rented to do these crimes. So we worked with their company because we weren't able to narrow it down. Now we have the ability to narrow it down. On our third box truck theft, we had 3 and 4 right in a row. They were coming out of Peoria and one out of Southern Illinois. That MO for the crime spread throughout the criminal community. So we spent October, November, December, and it has finally tailed off because we were able to locate box trucks that are specific to that type of crime in retail areas almost instantaneously. So we had one that went to a larger retailer here in Bloomington on the west side, pulled up, parked, they did their crimes, got back in, and our guys met them in the parking lot. It starts with a W, and it's a really big store over in Normal. Met them in the parking lot as they pulled in to do their second one. And their first words were like, I don't know how you guys found us. That's how we found them, using the machine learning and being able to just exclude the license plate altogether and just give me the box trucks that look like this as they move across town.
Absolutely.
That's a recent case. Very, very cool, very efficient for us.
And now those criminals don't come back anymore because they don't want to get caught. They say, hey, I don't know how y'all got us, but I'm going down the road. I'm going across the street. I'm going to some other town to do this. Shows that crime doesn't pay. So this is just a good example of, you know, if we were to find a box truck, we could just come in here and say, all right, well, we've got the tag here. We can search only by box trucks. Obviously, if it was a U-Haul, if it was something else, right, we could see that here. But that is what allows us to actually see the entire vehicle here. It's not just the license plate that you might get with other vendors. You actually get the entire vehicle here and say, even if they had no license plate, we can still search by box truck or white pickup truck or red SUV or whatever the case may be. So,
just to jump in here real quick, there are a couple other tools that the Bloomington PD now has at their disposal as well, where they can ingest your live video as well. So, like, if you just have live video cameras sitting at the outside, that can now live inside their network, and they can access them in real time or pull the recordings as needed without you guys having to reshare it, provide provide passwords, anything like that. So the cameras are already up, can already handle that. And then there was a question earlier about quality of video. So we can also take video that's happening and then overlay our machine learning on top of it to basically turn it into a license plate reader. And the quality, like if you can read with your eye, like that is the plate is XR437, then our machine learning can do that as well. We can't focus your video or anything like that, but if it's clear enough today, just to read that license plate, our overlay can do that for you. For the PD, it's only $1,500 per camera per year. So less than $100 a month, or a little bit over $100 a month. You can turn your live video in your parking lots into plate readers.
And so what we'll do is if we want to explore that option, then we'll take a look at your property. Let's say, all right, do we need LPRs? Do we need to add any additional infrastructure, whatever the case may be, and say, where do you currently have cameras? And can we overlay our software to make it pretty simple, pretty sleek? We don't need to put another pole in the ground, things of that nature. So if you do, like, we'll get to the end of this and raise your hand, and we'll come up with a kind of a recommendation there. Other questions? Anything else we want to talk through here?
What's Dan, on existing cameras, what is the minimum resolution you need to be able to overlay your software?
Well, there he goes. I guess he got tired of talking. It's a really good question. Typically, we're in the a handful of megapixels. Our LPR cameras are 5 megapixel. It's not like we're shooting for National Geographic on the Serengeti. We don't need it to be incredible. What we will do is, if we want to explore that, then we'll probably bring in one of our technical experts to say that. If you can read the tag from looking at your cameras, it's good enough.
Yeah, Chase, if I can. So we've got 6, 7, 8, and we're gonna do 9 more intersection cameras, right? So we're using existing intersection cameras. That was my first concern, is they're not good enough to work with this system. We came in higher than what they needed at 720, and this is the nerd side of me. 720 at 30 frames a second was too much data for them. So they're reading successfully at much lower level, somewhere between the old 480 and 720 and 12 frames a second. So it's and the read rate for us is in the high 90s off
So
old cameras.
So yeah, that's not a very, that goes back to Kat's question about how new of a piece of equipment do you need? Obviously, that's going back into the 2015s, 2016s in terms of security cameras.
Old security cameras, yeah. So our old intersections, the one thing that you'll hear plate reader, and a lot of people say, what if they take their license plate? Somebody's probably thinking that. We've been to a bunch of presentations. We've had people take them off. We put saran wrap on them, aluminum foil. They've used painter's tape to change the digits. It's funny because it doesn't matter. As long as your store or your business says we couldn't read the plate, we have 1 digit or 1 letter, an A or a B, but I know it was a red Mustang because my cousin drove one. And the officers bring up Google and they're like, is it a newer one or an older one? Looks like that one. We jump back in, we look at red Camaros. Geographically, they would only be in that area on a map. So we only look at the cameras in that area, and only when we need to look at them. We're not, pulling through this data until we need it. So taking the plates off hasn't really not affected us too awful much.
So I'm actually here because I'm representing a residential treatment center in Iroquois County. So north of Champaign, east of us. Is there still opportunity to send a feed to McLean County, to the Bloomington Police, or we should be working with local law enforcement, which is like very small?
Well, I guess that's a good question for Chase, is what departments do you work with, does Flock work with within Illinois?
Dan, you out there? Might be on the phone. It is probably easier for us to tell you which ones we don't work with in Illinois.
That's a positive thing.
I can chase it if you want me to tell them. Yeah, I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. People that don't have them are Urbana, Lincoln, and Clinton. Other than that, every county and every city, and what you'll call, and we call Central Illinois, right? Everybody has at least 1 camera and 1 account, and we were all cooperative. It's taken 2 years to get on the same team where we share when needed. So that's the Champaign example I used earlier, right? I was able to tell them our car left our city, and I know it's in their town. It was at 9:24 a.m. It rolled into Champaign on the north side because we share when we need to. So just those 3 or 4 cities. Everybody else either has a device or account, Pete. Now it's heavily populated up till I-80, and then Chicago is Chicago, right? Chicago does something different than everybody else, but pretty much outside of Chicago, East St. Louis, everybody else is on this same system. So
And Iroquois County does have this integration, so you can share with the sheriff's office as well. And because of the network effect, then that means, Jack can come in and search, another county's cameras or another city PD's cameras and things like that, because they all can share there. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
I want to ask a question on a very basic level. So I have cameras. I'm at East Bay Camp on Lake Bloomington.
Okay.
My priority for license plate readers is to protect our children from non-custodial parents
Yep.
or people who want to commit crimes against children.
100%.
I am glad if Bloomington PD and the county want to catch the motorcycle people that fly by and cause harm to everybody, and all those things. But I want to understand on a basic level. So I have existing systems. Do I need the flock technology to provide the feed? Because I'm glad for anybody to have it. That's not a problem if it's helpful.
It's a good question. So you currently have cameras at the entrance.
I have
Or
9
cameras.
access points and I have 5 license plate readers. I have other cameras that provide us 360 coverage. I can see across the lake from some of our cameras on Ron Smith, it's incredible. I've been very pleased.
Good.
I didn't know you existed, so I apologize. And I
That is
prefaced
all
my
right.
question
No
with
problem.
that.
That is all right. Yeah. So for something like that, if we wanted to exist within the same ecosystem that Jack is accessing and things like that, then we would essentially overlay our software onto your LPRs.
Okay.
Well,
what makes that pretty?
Oh,
Dan, you
real
trying to
quick.
jump in here?
Yeah. If I jump in real quick, they have Flock OS. Bloomington does. So, are your cameras on a VMS?
You're-
A
you're-
video management system?
I'm not the person you want to talk to about that. I
We
wrote the
can
grant
find out
for it.
then, yeah. Because what we can do is just essentially turn it on and have it already ingested
Okay.
into Bloomington PD.
And I hate to be that way. I'm a nonprofit and I can't
No,
No.
that's all
pay,
I mean,
but I'm glad for them to access it if it's helpful in that regard.
Yeah.
My selfish question that comes next is, from your perspective, do I need to post anything? I've let our neighbors know, I've let camper parents know, those kinds of things, but do I need to tell anybody else, like the Cisco man who drives up once a week? Do I need to tell anybody else that I'm recording them?
The answer is really no. The reasoning is the legal language is there's no reasonable expectation of privacy on public access roads. It is no different than you looking right at the Cisco man and saying, I can see your license plate. It's really no different from that. So we have seen people post signs, with our cameras that say there's something in place to actually deter things. But from a legality standpoint or do I need to? No. What we have seen, you mentioned non-custodial parents. This is something that we do with our school safety customers. They're actually able to put in a custom list of tags of non-custodial parents to say, if this person shows up on our property, our team wants to be alerted immediately. It's not illegal for them to be on property, but it is something that you want to be aware of to actually either protect that child or meet that person at the gate with your security team or whatever resources you have. And we've seen that work gangbusters to deter non-custodial parents or people who you're already looking for from coming on property.
Very helpful. Thank you.
And
if I could just weigh in,
Okay.
it works fantastic. We have a rock festival here now that is just on the outside edge of town, 25,000 people. And last year we had a significant threat toward somebody that was very important. And they called from another state before they got here and said, how are you going to handle that? And the first wave of our defense was to we have portable plate readers, by the way. And I just got another one today that shipped from Flock that we can bolt up in an area, as needed until not needed. So what we did is we bolted up our temporary plate readers, put the target's plate in, and said, send us a text message 24 hours a day if he or she arrives to threaten this artist. And it works perfectly. So we talked to kind of the corporations here in town, gave them the same scenario. If you had theoretically somebody that was a policy holder, 4 states away that causes problems, we deal with that all the time where people want to drive 4 states to have their point made. And we said, you would know before they get in your office and have to call the police that they've shown up on it's your property already. So that stuff's fantastic.
That's kind of the situation I'm facing right now with a threat to our campus. the roads or the streets that surround our campus is community streets.
Mhm.
If I wanted to put one of these solar powered infrastructure free license plate readers on any of the streets, would I have to get the town's approval for that?
There'd be,
depends on who
I'm
owns the
sure there'd
land.
be a permit involved to drop it in the right of way. If it's on your private property shooting onto the street, though, you do not need a permit for that.
No,
You
Just who
so-
owns the right?
Yeah, it's who owns the ground. And not to belabor the point too much, but those live video cameras, if it is streamed back to a cloud-based kind of program, it would be what 30 times, it'd be less than $300 a year for the law enforcement to have access to those cameras in real time, the live video side of it. So like one of the big thing that the Bloomington is doing is they brought a program from Flock that basically allows them to ingest not only their own video, but any sort of private video in there as well. So what we're seeing with some of the ones that done this a year ago plus, that they are now basically have this wide network that they are able to access when there are 911 calls, when there are anything like that. Basically hit the camera on the map, pull up your videos. So when they're responding, from dispatch, they can see what's happening to give better context before they arrive, or after the fact when they're on the site and they're talking to suspects, matching up stories, they can just pull up the video right from their phone or right from their laptop of what happened that led up to this, to have better context, to explain to the offenders about, okay, this is what we're seeing. How does that match up with your story? And just allows them to be more effective in the work that they're doing. Again, at a very, very reasonable price point.
Can you give me an estimate of what the price point, if I want to put these cameras in, where are we starting at? Or the
Yeah,
license
if you
plate?
want to put one of our hardware, our software, and it's not overlaying on your current cameras, our pricing right now is $3,500 per camera. That's actually run on a yearly fee, on a yearly service. So we're going to run the maintenance. We're going to run the cloud storage. So if a camera goes down or you lose Wi-Fi or whatever the case may be, you don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. We're going to upgrade it. We're going to make sure that it's connected to law enforcement and things like that. So
Thank you.
yeah, pretty simple.
Hey,
Other questions?
do you have any, like, I know that we are just standing up Flock OS like right now.
Right.
Do you have any gas stations, any major retailers that have already signed up to share their video into the network?
We're early on the projects. We have 5 plate readers and 1 private camera coming in through the interface now. But we literally just got, the council just signed off on this week, beginning of this week.
Right.
So my timeline looks like this: January through March, April, slow approach to everything, roll them in, and then we're going to approach, like I talked about before, some of the biggest companies in town, or some of the spots where the company is right beside a headache location or a problem location for their customers, and see what we get. But it's gonna be a multi-month approach to get everybody to yes or no, and a lot of transparency for everybody that's public here that aren't us. One thing we pride ourselves in Bloomington is transparency on this program. We've been doing this since 2012. And there isn't anything we won't answer. One of the things we do unique in this town, when I set up video cameras, we put opaque boxes over people's residence. So it's the old trust in government thing. And the police officers are like, why is there a gray box across the top of this apartment building? It's like, so we can't see in it. We don't need to see in it. We don't have the reason to see in it. We want to watch the traffic out front. So we got to go that extra mile for anybody that watches this recording in Bloomington, at least, for transparency. So if they have any questions about integrations or any questions about how we're going to use it, when we're going to use it, I kind of touched on that earlier, right? Major incidents only. We're not going to troll people's video to see what's going on. It's just after, like Dan said, 911 call comes in, the map activates, tells us what cameras are nearby, and we're going to look to see what's happening. Other than that, it's going to be dormant.
Any other questions? Anything else we want to dive into before we start to wrap up here? What makes sense is I'll send over a thank you email to everybody, so everybody has my contact information. If you'd like to talk a little bit more about either overlaying the video to have it ingested by Bloomington, or install your own video cameras from Flock or your own LPR cameras from Flock. We are happy to put together kind of a statement of work. What does it look like? What would we need? What would you need? Things of that nature. And then we can just kind of go from there. And then obviously Jack will keep you up to date on is anybody raising their hand? Anybody that we want to expect these cameras come into your Flock OS system, things of that nature. So we can just see where we go from there. Any other questions come up, please give me a shout, drop me a note. I'm happy to get on a one-on-one conversation like this if we don't want to ask it in a group setting. And we can be rocking and rolling. So with that, we'll let everybody get back to their respective days, putting out their respective fires. And Jack, we thank you for your time here, and thank you for coming on board. And we'll let y'all get back to it.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.